Good evening, everyone. We really appreciate you being here tonight. My name is Daryl Bielis. I'm the Executive Director of the Central States Languages for All organization, and we are thrilled to have you here tonight with our good friends at AFS-USA Intercultural Programs. I know they have something really fantastic in store for you tonight, so I will be brief. I just wanted to welcome you and mention that our 2026 Central States Conference will be held in Chicago this year, March 12th through the 14th at the historic Palmer House, which is very close to Millennium Park, or just a short stone's throw from the river and the Magnificent Mile. It's a great facility, beautiful city, and we really hope to see you there. If you have a great idea for a session or a workshop proposal, we are accepting proposals right now. You can go to our website at the centralstatesconference.org for all the information on our upcoming conference and to submit your proposals. So once again, welcome, and I hope you enjoy this evening's session and have some great takeaways. So nice to see you all. Thanks so much for being here, and thank you to our friends at AFS USA Intercultural Experiences for partnering with us to provide this program for you tonight. Jill?
Okay, thank you so much, Daryl. So I am going to share my screen so we can jump in and get started. So hopefully everyone can see that without any problems. All right. So, and just to make sure everyone is in the right spot, this presentation is all about values and viewing values from lots of different perspectives. So this is an interactive workshop. It's not just a kind of sit and get sort of thing. So there are going to be some breakout groups. There's going to be an individual activity. So if you have a piece of paper handy, that would be good so that during the individual activity, you'll be all set with that. So in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and get started with a little bit of introduction. So you know a little bit about who we are and what we're doing. So again, you're going to need one piece of scrap paper and a writing utensil, not for a few minutes, but this is a good time to get up and go get it if you don't have that handy. So my name is Jill Warner, and I have served AFS USA as the Senior Director of Education and Outreach to Schools for almost the past 6 years. I have recently transitioned into becoming a volunteer with the organization and taking a new role with another organization. So I'm proud to kind of be here with you in a weird space of both a former staff member, but also as a current volunteer, because part of what AFS does is supports volunteers who are doing a lot of great things in local communities. And you're going to learn a little bit more about AFS right here. Because what AFS USA has been doing for over 75 years is what we call intercultural exchange. So inviting young people to be part of your school and classroom and your community from over 80 different countries around the world, and supporting those students in going abroad as well. And that volunteerism has come out of our founders, which were the American Field Service. That's what the AFS stands for. The American Field Service ambulance drivers in the World Wars, who came out of World War II with a very bold mission of wanting to create a more peaceful world and doing that through that intercultural exchange. So how does that connect to educators? That connects to educators in schools, both from the informal learning that happens when those students are part of classrooms, but also from the perspective that because we have a lot of experience working with teenagers, going both directions across the globe, we have also taken a lot of those resources and turned them into classroom activities and intercultural guides to support the work that you're doing in classrooms that are filled with students from a lot of different backgrounds and who represent a lot of different perspectives. So we hope that you find these two activities that you're going to do tonight, and the access to the resources that we're going to share at the end of the presentation. We hope you find those super useful, and potentially even something that you could do with your students in class tomorrow. So our goals this evening are that you walk away with two activities that you could use in your classroom, hopefully even in the target language, that you learn a little bit more about your own values and perspectives, You learn how to support students in exploring their values and their connection to other countries and cultures. And then you learn a little bit more about how AFS USA can support you in both adding value to your classroom, your school, and your local community. So we're going to jump right in with our first activity. And for this one, it's so easy to replicate that you really don't need any materials other than a list of values. So when you think about doing this in the target language, it's a matter of what vocabulary do your students know that relate to personal values. So if they have learned a lot of those words that relate to values, then you would be able to walk in tomorrow and do this. If they don't have a lot of vocabulary that relates to personal values, then they're probably going to need a little background with some of that vocabulary before they're going to be ready to jump into this. Okay. Unless you teach a language that has a lot of cognates or something like that, where they would easily be able to decipher what the meaning of those words would be. Okay. So, so our first activity is thinking about values. Well, values in general, there are a couple of different definitions of this. So tonight, what we're going to be working with is this bottom one, right? We're talking about a person's principles or their standards of behavior. So it's one's judgment about what is important in life. So when we're looking at these values in this next activity, this is the definition of value that we're operating with. Okay. Just wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page for that. So in this first activity, what's going to happen is my colleague Jacob is going to be he's going to be setting up some breakout groups, and you're going to be in a group of somewhere between 3 to 5 people. And in just a moment, I'm going to show you a list of values, and I want you to take a moment, screen the list, and I want you to pick one. Just one. You can't have 5, you can't have 2. You need to pick one value from that list. And I want you to be thinking about, why did you pick that value? Why does it stand out to you? Why is it important to you? Why did you select that value? Okay, so when I move into this next slide, that's the only thing you really need to do, is to pick out one value and to think about why you selected it. Okay, why is it important to you? And then you're going to hold until we're ready to open those breakout groups and I give you your next piece of instruction. Okay. So I'm going to let you peruse this list a little bit so you can select one. And if you want to use the reactions, or if you have your camera on, give me a little thumbs up or something to indicate that you have selected your value, that you know which one you're going to use in our next activity. Okay, thank you, Mariana. Great. Blanca, awesome. Okay, Mohammed, I think Josh selected his already. All right, a few more folks. We just want to make sure you have a moment to select your value. This is sometimes the hardest part. It's a big decision because there are a lot of choices. Okay. All right, I see a couple more thumbs up, so I think we're good. All right, so what's going to happen in just a moment, Jacob is going to open these breakout groups. All right. And if somebody could be so kind as to kind of be the informal timekeeper, that would be great. And we want each person to have a moment to share, but not more than 1 minute, if you could help us with that, because we want to try and keep things moving this evening. So I want you to share, right? Why did you select the value that you selected, and how is it positive? Right? What are the things that you would associate with this value that are positive? Okay? So you already know the value that you've selected. When Jacob opens these breakout groups. Your role is to share for 1 minute about why you chose it and why is it positive. Okay? Any questions? Otherwise, your breakout groups are open and you guys can hop right in. Back, everyone. So I think we've got everyone. Does anyone from their groups want to share anything surprising that they heard without violating your group's private discussion? Is there anything that you wanted to share from your discussion?
I just wanted, I can't remember what everybody said. They all had great values, great reasons for them, but I just wanted to say that I was surprised that empathy wasn't a value. Because that's the thing I had in mind when I went to the screen.
Yes. So, so I will share a little about the fact that there may be some values that you are welcome to utilize in your classroom that I may not have been at liberty to share on the slide. That being one of them, just related to we are an organization that receives federal funding, as some of our students are on State Department scholarships. So therefore, there are some topics that are not going to be shown in a recorded presentation that is made available publicly. So, but you in your classroom have all the flexibility in the world to add other values that you, your community, your students would hold, as something precious or important. So that is not an exhaustive list of values. It is simply an approved list of values. So I hope that makes sense.
Thank you.
Okay. That was a good observation though. Anything else that anyone found surprising or that they appreciated in the discussions that they had? Okay. All right, so you're actually going to go back to those same breakout groups in just a moment, but I am changing the task on you for this round of it, okay? So when we send you back to your breakout group, this time you are going to be asked to talk about how that same value that you spoke about before could be perceived as negative by others. Okay, so that's your only real task. You're going to get roughly 1 minute. And this can be a little bit more of a group discussion. So it's not just on you to think about how your value may be perceived as negative, but hopefully your group will help you contribute to that thought about how that value could be perceived as negative by others. Okay, so Jacob's going to open those breakout groups again. You're going to have about 4 minutes in your breakout group, and then we're going to bring you back. Welcome back, everyone. So, how did this new conversation go? How did that feel to kind of turn the tables on the value that you selected because it was something that jumped out to you, something that you valued personally, and now all of a sudden we ask you to think about how that value may be perceived as negative by others. What were some of the values that were chosen, and what were some of those discussion points that came out in the breakout groups? Who's brave enough to share?
Well, I know for me, like I chose selflessness. And I
Mhm.
feel like that's an easy one to be able to turn into a negative view where it's the idea of the bleeding heart person who can take advantage of and only worries about the problems of others and over emphasizes the fact that there's this inequity or whatnot. So
Yep. Yep. That's a great one. All right. Who else had one that they're willing to share? I did tell you up front this was going to be interactive, so hopefully someone else is open to sharing before we move on to our next activity.
I can share.
Sure, thank
I
you.
yeah, sure. I choose persistence, and
Uh-huh.
I think it in many occasions could be good quality, helping achieving goals. But when trying to turn the table around and think of it as a negative one, it could be also a synonym of maybe stubbornness, being stubborn, and maybe other people see my persistence as useless. This thing is not for you. Maybe you should just stop wasting time and try something new.
Yeah, that's a great observation. So I really appreciate you both sharing these comments, because this activity is one that we've done with students in the past. I've done with teachers before in the past as well, and it's always a good reminder that our perception and our values are not commonly shared among everyone. And so when we make certain assumptions, or when we express certain values, or when we favor certain values among behaviors for our students in our classroom, there is always a possibility that if a student is coming to us from a different cultural background, or just from a different culture in general, whether it's a home culture or a global culture, that there is always the possibility that what is valued in their upbringing and in their background in life, for a certain trait is different, or that a certain value they have learned to perceive it differently. And sometimes that is more positively than we do, and sometimes it's more negatively than we do. And so it's always a good reminder that, there are a lot of different perspectives that can be applied to even things that we see as positive values, traits, and behaviors among people. Okay? So for this next activity, if you remember, I did tell you you're going to need a piece of paper and a writing utensil. So this next activity is exactly that. You're going to need a piece of paper and you're going to need a writing utensil. So if you don't have that, while I start describing it, now is the time to go get those resources so that you are ready to go. Because you are going to be doing some writing, which means I'm going to get a little quiet while you're doing the writing. Don't worry, you're not working on complete sentences, you're not doing anything, nobody's checking your spelling, etc. It's all single words, because again, this is something that you could replicate with your students, right? We don't want you to think that these things are not applicable to a teenage or even a middle school or a university audience, depending on who your student audience is. Okay? So you need one piece of paper and one writing utensil. Okay? And on your piece of paper, what I want you to do is draw some boxes on there, and I want you to have 2 rows of 6 boxes. If you want to number them 1 through 12, you can. I color coded them so that it was very visual for you on the screen, just to make sure you could see that there are 6 rows, or 2 rows of 6 boxes each. What you want is 12 boxes, but you do need them to be stacked on top of one another like that. Okay, that's a piece that's important as we move forward. So I'm going to give everybody just a moment to make sure they have their 2 rows of 6 boxes. Okay. All right, any questions about what you're supposed to draw? Hopefully that's not too difficult in trying to get that image on there. So you need 12 boxes that are stacked. Okay, so you have six little columns of 2. Now, in this activity, again, you see a whole chart full of values. And I want you to take the 12 that you connect with, right? What are the 12 values that are either the most meaningful or that you connect with the most? And those are the 12 that you're going to put in those boxes. You can ignore all the other words on the screen. You pick your top 12 from that list. And to Rebecca's point earlier, you are welcome to change this list for use in your own classroom. This is not an exhaustive list. For the purpose of tonight, I'm going to say choose from this list, But if you were to replicate this and do it in your own classroom, you use the values that are going to be community specific or important to your classroom or your school. Okay. Or even the culture that you're teaching. So that's another piece too. There may be things that are valued in the culture, the target culture, that you may want to infuse as well. Okay. So pick your 12. And when you're done, give us a little thumbs up, or you can put a little note in the chat to let us know that you're done, because it's going to be important that you finish before we move on to the next step. Okay, I see a couple of folks are finishing up. That's great. I'm going to give folks just another minute or two. See if we can get everybody completed with their 2 rows of 6 boxes, filling in those 12 words. Because this list is going to disappear as soon as I move to the next slide. So it's important that we don't leave anyone behind. Okay, thanks, Josh, Mariana, great. Okay, I think we're maybe just waiting on maybe 1 or 2 more people. All right. Okay, so I think we're ready. So now what I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to draw another row below. You can leave a gap, right? I want you to draw another row, but this time it's a single row of 6 boxes. Okay, so just a single row of 6 boxes. If your lines are not straight, don't worry. No one else is going to see this besides you. Okay. Now your next step is to look at the 2 that are stacked together in that first column, and then you have to select one of those 2 values and move it down to your new empty box that you just created. And then you move over to the next column and you select from those 2 and you can choose one and move it down. And then you do the same thing for each of your 6 columns. So now it's tough because you have to, you've taken these words and now I'm making you decide and prioritize. Of the ones that you selected, now you have to get rid of 50% of them. Okay. So this takes a minute as you really have to prioritize and make some decisions. So when you're done, give me some emoji or some reaction of some sort to let me know that you're ready. Good. I see some things in the chat. So lots of thumbs up. Okay, you guys did that fast. Okay, that's great. Now, one more round of this. Okay, this time, what you're going to be doing is you need a single row, but now you only have 3 boxes. Okay, and what you're going to do is you're going to look at from the group of 6 boxes you just had, you're going to look at the first 2 that are next to each other, and you have to choose between those 2, and you move it down. And then the next 2, you choose one and move it down. And then the final 2, you choose one and move it down. So I was kind of random and showed that out of the first 2, I chose, oh, I actually numbered that incorrectly. I apologize. I chose value number 2 because it's blue. In the next one, I chose value number 4. And then in the last one, I chose value number 5. Okay. All right. So what we want to know is when everybody gets to the point of having 3 final values. Okay. I'm starting to see a lot of thumbs up. That means you guys made some quick decisions. That's good. So what did you learn about yourself doing this activity? You're welcome to put it in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute. But this is definitely something where you kind of have to look inward a little bit when you're asked to prioritize those values and narrow it down. So what did you learn about yourself? Hi, Maria. You unmuted, so I'm hoping that means you're willing to share. Okay, I see some people putting comments in the chat. It's great. All right. So people don't like conflict. All right.
I can
You're
go.
choosing things like love and peace. That's great. Yeah, you unmuted. Please share.
So what I learned is that I like to work collaboratively, and I always look like for kindness everywhere, and I like to be spontaneous, and I like people to be spontaneous. And that sounds very like familiar, so I am comfortable with my choices.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And if you were to just look at these 3 values that you narrowed it down, would you say that other people could look at those values and say, yes, those, like this person embodies those 3 values?
I
Would
would
they
like
say that? Yeah.
I would like to say yes.
Yep. I love that people are sharing their values in the chat. You're sharing what you narrowed it down to. Now the interesting thing is we don't know where you started, right? We know you started with 12, and this is what you narrowed it down to because we forced you to, right? Not because you wanted to, but because we forced you to in this activity. So now I want you to think about how would your students do with this activity? Do you think there would be an aspect of they're looking at their friends' papers to see what their friends chose because they want to be in alignment with the values that their friends picked out in class? Do you think they would be comfortable enough sharing the values that they narrowed it down to? Do you think they would select their values based on what they believe or what they perceive others value? What do you think when you think
I,
about your
can I
students? Yeah.
answer? I actually do this activity with some students. It's called a value sort, but it's in English. I'm a mentor for a 2nd-year group called STEP at Ohio State. We do the same thing. And to answer your questions, of the sophomores that I work with, they don't ask others. They do their own work. They're very independent about it, and they take a lot of time and a lot of thought. And then they are very good about sharing their results with everybody. So I just, because that's the questions you ask, I thought I would just let you know because it's almost exactly the same activity with a little different values mixed in.
Yeah. And these are university sophomores?
Yes, they are university sophomores at Ohio State.
Okay, great. All right. Anyone from a middle school or a high school audience want to share how they think their students may react or respond? Potentially the same, potentially differently?
Hi, for high school and middle school,
Uh-huh.
my experience is like basically I noticed that some or few of them, they really share what they are really thinking and feel, the values that they have. But most of them, they choose those based on what they perceive from others, because
Yeah.
they don't want to look like, for example, if I'm not have a collaboration, let's say that,
Mhm.
no, I don't want they look at me like that, so I'm gonna put this one, because if not, it's gonna look bad on me. So
Yeah.
basically, they go for what others said, unfortunately, but they are like that.
Yeah. But it's interesting when you say that at the kind of middle school, high school audience, and then you see where they grow into as sophomores at the university level, right? When they have reached that level of independence, that now they are separated from all of the students with whom they went to school in their geographic area, and now they have made choices on their own that are in alignment with some of their values as they graduated and moved into a post-secondary experience. They had to make choices. And once they make it to that sophomore year, they've made enough choices that they even want to stay at that university. So they're enacting their values to say that this is a place that they believe they want to stay, that's in alignment with who they are and things like that. Whereas at the high school level, there's a lot of peer pressure. They are surrounded by individuals with whom there's a lot of judgment, for good or for bad. There's a lot of judgment that happens at the middle school, high school level. And so this is a type of activity to help them do a little reflection. Um, and you can do this activity. It is very similar, as Rebecca was sharing, it is very similar to the value sort activity. You can do this in a way that you are asking students to reflect. So have them do a reflection so they never actually have to share with others in their classroom what they actually selected or how they narrowed it down. And you can tell them from the beginning that the words that they choose will only ever be shared with you, so that they know there's no peer pressure that's going to be intermingled into that, to see if you get a more honest response out of them. You could do it differently with, class A in the morning, class B in the afternoon. Have one class do, a small group discussion at the end where they are sharing, another group where they're doing a written reflection, that only gets shared with you, to see if you get completely different responses from the students. So there are ways to do this. It's a very simplistic activity, but it's about narrowing it down, and asking them to make choices about their priorities related to values. So any questions about either of these two activities? No? Okay. Hope everyone can see some applicability to their world language classroom, how it could even potentially be done in the target language if your students have sufficient vocabulary. Um, Here's a couple more reflection questions that we won't necessarily spend the time going through, but just so you have them. If you knew in advance about those directions, would you have chosen differently? Would you have done something differently? When I've done this with teachers before, they're like, oh, well, if you'd have told me those directions up front, then I would have lined them up in the boxes differently. Because they knew which ones they wanted to prioritize from the beginning, because they're the first ones that they picked out. And so, if they got pinned against each other, they didn't like that very much. And then I would ask you, is there a connection between the things that you prioritized in those top three values and the activities or choices that you make where you spend the most time, right? Are those in alignment? The things that you've prioritized in terms of values, are those in alignment with how you spend your time? Okay. All right, so section 3, and we've got about 10 minutes because we want to keep everybody on time. We always want to be respectful of that. Is just thinking about, do you value any of these things? Human relationships, cultural relevancy, collaboration, adaptability, varied perspectives, global awareness, variety, etc. Because if you do, then AFS can help you do that, right? So, what AFS does as an intercultural organization and as a nonprofit, we bring global peers to local communities to share firsthand perspectives from their home country. You picture having one of these students be a guest speaker in your world language classroom. And it doesn't matter. Now, our students that come are of high school age. So if you are at the university level, this would be borrowing a student who's being hosted and attending a local high school, but they can be wonderful cultural ambassadors from your target culture if you don't have any other young people in your classroom to be able to share both the language and the culture that the students are learning. They are a multilingual peer. They speak the target language. We've got kiddos coming from 80 different countries. So no matter what language you teach, I'm pretty sure that we could find a student that speaks that language, if not as their home language, as at least their second language. We have everything from Portuguese to Mandarin to Turkish, Russian, German, Spanish, French, Japanese, etc., etc. Like we kind of have them all. So I'm sure there are a couple we might be missing out on, but for the most part, we've got students that are representing a lot of countries and cultures around the world. These students can serve as inspiration for your local students. And also, and this may sound, odd, but they can kind of be as support for some US students. There are times that our students go to a local community where they are the only student who celebrates a certain religion or that, looks or speaks a certain way. And other than a peer who may be the only other student in the building. And now all of a sudden that student is not alone. And so it can be a really good alignment and some great relationship building in those situations. It's great inspiration for US students to think about the fact that they can go abroad. They are capable, they have the skills, and because of our relationship with the State Department and some of the offerings that the State Department has, there are fully funded scholarships for students to pursue study abroad programs on full scholarship. So we want students to be applying and taking advantage of those. And of course, where we are from a mission standpoint, these are kids who are promoting peace and mutual understanding through those peer-to-peer relationships. By teaching their peers about those different things, they really are engaging in a form of human to human diplomacy, which is great. So if your school values recognition, if your school values additional enrollments, high attendance, service to the local community, and even scholarships, then we really invite you to get involved with us. The medallion program is a recognition that your school could receive if they choose to host a student who is on a State Department scholarship. It's a recognition from the State Department that says, hey, we appreciate your engagement in public diplomacy and helping to, teach your local students about the world and invite that student and their country and culture into your local community. If your community values new opportunities, safety and prosperity, again, community service and scholarships, then again, we hope you will consider adding value to your community by encouraging the families of your students or of your colleagues, especially at the university level, encouraging your professor colleagues and faculty and staff at the university to consider hosting an exchange student. It can be just a wonderful addition to a classroom, to a community, etc. So I'm not going to read all of these slides to you. I'm just going to give you the 10-cent version of each of these. But the Congress Bundestag Youth Exchange, what we refer to as CBYX, is a study abroad scholarship for American students to go abroad to Germany and spend an academic year. Wonderful, fully funded opportunity for students to have that experience. We also have those students coming from Germany that you could have in your classroom and in your community that are on that same scholarship because it is a collaboration between the two governments. The National Security Language Initiative for Youth Scholarship, we refer to that as NISLE. This scholarship, students could study abroad for a summer or for an academic year, and they're going to do that while studying pretty intensely, I would say, one of the languages that you see on your screen. So Indonesian, Turkish, Arabic, Mandarin, Korean, Russian, etc. Because those are languages that the federal government has deemed of strategic importance. And so it's important that we have young people, especially at the teenage age group, learning those languages. We know the sooner they learn those languages, or any language for that matter, the better. So this is in alignment with that. And students do not have to have previous experience with those languages. It's great if they do, but it's not a requirement, as they will be able to engage in novice level instruction when they go abroad. The Kennedy Lugar Youth Exchange and Study. This again is another scholarship from the State Department that goes both directions. We have the study abroad version where American students can apply to go abroad for an academic year, but we also have the students coming inbound from all of these countries and more to the United States to be an exchange student here. Okay. We have partnered with the AATF, the American Association of Teachers of French, to send students abroad for a 4-week program in France, southern France. So we have a student who's headed out there this summer. She's going to be gone for the month of July, studying with students from all over the world. She's going to be practicing her French at a summer language camp in France. Teachers can nominate up to 3 students. And then we are very excited that through a partnership with Linko, if you're not familiar with them, they are kind of a tech company that does language. They have a language learning platform that teachers can utilize. And so as both a combination of merit and financial need, Linko works with us to run a scholarship where this year they offered 6 full scholarships for high school students to study abroad this summer. So we're excited to send students to Costa Rica, Argentina, Spain, and France this summer on full scholarships from Linko. So the either teacher nomination or student application timeline for all of these is in the fall. And we as an organization are committed to making study abroad more attainable for high school students. We don't want money to get in the way of a student having a study abroad experience. If they meet the qualities of an AFSer, we want them to go abroad and have that experience. And then my colleague Jacob is going to put some links in the chat for you to be able to reference this presentation and also access our intercultural resources that we have available for you. So this is what we call the cultural considerations. These are an intercultural resource that helps you have those cultural nuggets that explain how certain behaviors may look in other countries. So especially if you have students who are coming from different parts of the world and joining your classroom. We also have a lot of country-specific resources. So this would be a great tool for your students to check out for any of your target cultures that you're teaching about. And little one-pagers that show a little bit about the countries. And all of those are available on the link that Jacob put in the chat. So I'm going to pause, see if there's any questions. Otherwise, we're going to say thank you. We hope you enjoyed being a part of those activities and want to explore any of the, I think there's almost 30 more different activities that you can find on our website. So. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Wanted to say thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're glad you could join us. Looks like we've got folks from South Dakota and beyond, so all over the Central States region. We've gone from South Dakota to Ohio. I know Wisconsin is represented, so that's great. Thanks for joining us all. Okay. All right, so thank you, everyone. Enjoy your evening.